Welcome class to your lecture video for Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is titled Getting Started with Dreamweaver. Now Chapter 1 is going to run over 2 weeks. This will provide you some setup time, getting the software, and just kind of getting used to the feel of the course. Okay, so Chapter 1 objectives: explore the Dreamweaver workspace, view a web page and use help, plan and set up a website, and add a folder and pages. I'm going to use the lecture notes as a guide to guide me through this video. So explore the Dreamweaver workspace. So Dreamweaver workspace, you're going to find that you have menus, that you have panels, that you have buttons, inspectors, and you have panes. So opening and looking at Dreamweaver here, I have a couple files open, or actually just one file, and I have menus across the top, I have some toolbars, I have my panels over here, and I have another panel down here. So you're going to see those terminology used just with regards to the workspace. So here's another example. This is page 1-5 in your book. So here's the menu bar, this is the related files toolbar, document toolbar, document window, status bar, properties inspector. We got a workspace switcher, insert panel, and then we have where we can drag our panels around. So for example, right now I'm in the standard workspace. If I made some changes to it or maybe added something and I wanted to go back to what it was before, I can always reset. Once you get familiar with a workspace and it just works really well for your workflow, you can go ahead and save it. Okay, so that you can always come back to it. Maybe you use Developer for some of your projects. Now Developer is going to be, oh, Dreamweaver decided it didn't like that. Dreamweaver takes a lot of memory. So you're going to find that along the way you're going to have some frustrations with Dreamweaver, especially if you don't have a lot of memory on your computer. But it's always wise to shut it down, to release that memory, and even restart your computer so that your computer will function a lot better when you're running Dreamweaver. So let's see if I can go ahead and get that developer. There we go. So if I just click on, I went into, can't remember, I went into this one. Oh, click on TripSmart. I was in this one. So this is more what the developer looks like, just kind of more from a code viewpoint. These are a little bit tool tips that pop up like that. And then, but this is standard, is where I will direct most of my lectures from, is the standard view. So we have toolbar, we have menu, we have our code split in live view. So here's the code view, you see all the code. If I want to just see the design, I can click on design, and that'll show me just the design view of that page. If I want to see both, I can click on split, and then if I want to see live view, this is what most likely would appear like in a web browser. I can use that live view. It's about 80% accurate, so make sure you're always testing inside of a web browser. Now over to the right, we have the files panel, we have the insert panel, and the CSS designer panel. Those are the three main panels that we'll be working on throughout the semester. This little icon here in your files panel is what I want you to use to see remote and local view of your sites. So remote is this, where we can see what we see on A2 hosted, which I'll be sending information out about. And then this is what would be on your hard drive or maybe a flash drive. Okay, so this is your local view. This is you. Over here is the server. I click on this and it brings me back to collapsed view of Dreamweaver. Okay. So the document window is the one that's right here. So this is your document. The menu bar is across the top. Okay, so file all the way through help. The insert panel, over here with the files panel, it's docked there. And then it has all these categories: HTML, form, bootstrap, components, jQuery mobile, jQuery UI, and favorites. Document toolbar, again, code, split, and design live views. So code view, again, showing us our code, split showing us both code and design. Design isn't necessarily the functionality, but it shows you what a web page would look like. Live view would bring in the functionality you know, like a click, okay, or maybe some animation. Explore the Dreamweaver workspace again, window menu. So if you're missing a toolbar or a panel, go to the window menu and you can usually bring it back. So right now I see a DOM and I can see the insert panel. Okay, let's just say I accidentally closed this one out. Like maybe I clicked this menu and I went close and I lost my insert panel. I just simply go back to window and I click on insert and it brings it back. Related files are files that are linked to in the document. So across underneath the file name here, I see source code. This is source code for the index file. And then these are the related files or the resources that are being used. Coding toolbar contains buttons you can use when working directly in the code and is not visible unless you are in code view. Property inspector, sometimes referred to as the properties pane, lets you view and change properties of a selected object. So for example, if I wanted to work with this particular object on the page, if I click on it and I go to window and properties or control F3, I have nothing there because, well, I shouldn't say that. So depending on what object you have depends on what properties show up in the properties panel. If I'm here, it's going to give me information about a paragraph because that's what that is. And then the tag selector shows the HTML tags used in the insertion point. So the tag selector is down here in the very bottom. So if I wanted to work with this one, I can just click on it and then it will select what I'm working with. A panel is a tabbed window that displays information on a particular topic or contains related commands. So, files, panel. Panel groups are sets of related panels that are grouped together, such as the files panel. A collection of panels or panel groups is called a doc. Now, if I wanted to move this, I could simply take this and I can move it wherever I want to. So maybe if I like it better over here, or I can go when we get into, and I can try to dock it back here. There, I get the blue and then it's docked back. When we get into the CSS, this designers panel, I can take this tab and I can drag it out and I can expand and I can work with it that way. I can use the double arrow to collapse it down so that it just looks like this. I can float it up here. If I wanted to bring it back in here, I can bring it back over and dock it. So a lot of flexibility as far as your workspace. Okay, so let's look at pages 7 through 11. So this one just says Start Dreamweaver. I've already done that. And that's in Windows. Okay, so if you're a Mac user, no worries. You'll be able to complete this course right through using your Mac. So the start would be on page 8. We already looked at page 9, the changing the views in the view panels. I already took you through page 10, which is the insert panel, the files panel. And we drug a panel out and in. Okay, and again, if I wanted to, you know, once I get this, so let's just say I don't want the DOM, and I say close tab group. So now I have a bigger space for this panel group here. And I wanted to save this, I could click on save, or actually new workspace. It would actually be better. And let's just say this is for project TripSmart. Okay, so maybe, you know, depending on the website that I'm working on, I actually maybe name it that way, and I click OK. So now when I click here, this is my TripSmart, but if I go back to standard, and actually that I have to reset the standard, but because I modified it before I saved it. But if I wanted to go back to TripSmart, I can click on TripSmart and then I can see my workspace. Really handy if you utilize it, right? Okay, so let's jump into the next section. View a web page and use help. Web pages can be very simple and designed primarily with text, or they can be media rich with images, sounds, and movies. So this one, you know, probably the middle between complex and simple. Hyperlinks, this is what we click on. Images, add visual interest to a web page. Just make sure you don't add too many. Banners are images that appear across the top or down the side of the screen that can incorporate a company's logo, contact information, and links to other pages in the site. Menu bars, this is how we navigate a website. Okay, image map is an image that can be divided into sections. Maybe it's a map of the counties in North Dakota, for example. And each one of those can be a clickable area to lead to more information. Navigation structure. So we want to make sure that we have a good navigation structure. And we all have opinions about websites and whether they have a good navigation structure or not. The more complex a site gets, the more planning that needs to come into that. Rich media content, this is our engaging images, our interactive elements, our video, and our animations. Okay, so page 1-14, we're going to open these data files. So this one is looking for, so you'll notice that I just went through, when you download it, it'll be in a data folder, and then you'll go into each chapter. So this one is looking for, number 3 says DW1_1. So that's going to be chapter 1 and kind of like file 1. Okay, so this isn't the look that we'll be building for Striped Umbrella, but this is just an example so that you can go ahead and look at how to work through the workspace. So this one says select window on the menus bar and select hide panels. Okay, so now we've lost the panels that were over on the right. Now, you may have noticed when I did that we have F4. So you can use the F4 key on your keyboard. Now, depending on if you have an external keyboard or if you're on a laptop, sometimes those have their own functions, so you may be forced to go through the menu. Okay, and then it just says locate each of the web page elements shown in figure 9. So if I jump back to figure 9, which is, or actually not figure 9, is right on page 14 there. It just says locate each one of these. I'm going to jump into design view. So this one right here is going to be my banner. Of course, these are my links. Okay, this is my text. Let me get into just design view. And then I'm going to go ahead and close the properties inspector there. And then here is an image. Okay. And then we brought back the panels. And then just kind of jumping through. This is what code looks like. This is what split looks like. And this is what design looks like. And then live view, what it looks like. And we'll learn more about live view as we come through the course. Okay, using Dreamweaver help, close any files to display the welcome screen. So I'm going to close this, and then it says welcome screen, select help. I think this screen has been updated. So there's learn, there's quick start, there's starter templates. I'm just going to go through help here on the menu. Again, as I described in the introduction video for this course, you know, the textbook has an older date of copyright. And again, I'm going to keep you up to date as to what current version. And so we'll be working with the textbook as, you know, a great guide, but we'll be updating the technology. So what you see on the screen for on page 16, you know, just is updated to this current version. Okay, so I wonder what this is. Curious, I'm always like clicking on things. Okay, so let's go to help, and then there's Dreamweaver tutorial, there's quick tutorials, and then there's Dreamweaver help. So there's a lot of information under here as well. So if I go to Dreamweaver help, I'm going to be sent out to Adobe's website, and I can search out here. So let's just say I wanted to know information about adding fonts. Okay, so I click on that and it's going to give me information about how to add fonts. So you can learn a lot of information about just by asking the help and how you can learn how to do that particular thing that maybe you're just interested in doing, or if maybe are confused by how the book is describing how to do it, or just need to debug something. Okay, the next section is plan and set up a website. So planning, the more you plan a website, the less complex it can be. Okay, so good planning, it's just like when you plan a business, the more planning you do up front, the more smoothly it's going to progress. Okay, so we want to develop a plan, we want to create the basic structure, creating the content, testing, modifying, and publishing. Okay, so these are all described on page 118 of your book in a flow chart. Okay, the test, modify, publish, they're all things that are kind of like a circle. And then we want to look at the checklist that's on page 19. Who is the target audience? And you're going to answer these questions for your coffee shop website for me. Who is the target audience? Okay, so for your coffee shop site, who is your target audience? Okay, you might just throw some ages in there. You might just say coffee drinkers. Okay, how can I tailor the site to reach the audience? What are the goals for the site? Why are you going to pay for a website? Why are you going to develop a website? You got to have a goal. How will I gather the information? What are my sources for media content? So how am I going to get images? Okay, in your syllabus I pointed you to a Pixabay, for example. Okay, what is my budget? Okay, how much money do I have to develop this website? And what is my timeline? Who is on my project team? Well, on your team is you and me, okay? So make sure you list me there. How often should the site be updated? And who will update the site? Okay, so wireframe. A wireframe, sometimes referred to as a storyboard, is an illustration that represents every page in a website. So if you check out page 20 of chapter 1, you're going to see an example of a wireframe. Now here's the thing. When you were in CIS 154, for those that have taken that, a wireframe was referred to the page layout. Okay, I am going to call what they have on page 20 a storyboard. Okay, let's see what I call it in the instructions because I don't want to confuse the two. Yeah, I leave it as wireframe. So here's an example. If I click on that, there's the wireframe. But please know that I also understand that a wireframe might be, hey, here's the header of the page, here's the navigation of the page. Okay, but this book is calling it a wireframe. I call that a storyboard. I call this a storyboard. Okay. A home page is the top page. Okay, it's called the parent page, and anything linked to it is called a child page. Okay, then we get into where we actually set up how we're going to refer to the local files in Dreamweaver versus the remote files. Okay, so the local site folder is what I call the root folder. It's a folder for the site with a descriptive name, such as the name of the company, and it will be used to store all the pages or HTML files for the site. A subfolder in which you store all the files that are not pages, such as images and sound files, should be created and could be named assets or images. Okay, after you create the local site folder, you are ready to set up your site using the Dreamweaver Site Setup dialog box. So the Files panel is where you're going to use to manage this. Okay, so we're going to step through the pages in your book, page 22 through 25. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that, pages 22 through 25. So select the location for your website. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to either go to desktop or documents, or maybe it's your flash drive, or maybe you have a folder called CIS 230, or maybe it's called Dreamweaver. Okay, I'm going to go to my desktop. And I am going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call it CIS 230. And within CIS 230, I am going to create folders of blooms. That's that blooms and bulbs. I'm going to create one called striped. Underscore, so whenever you're using spaces, you want to use underscore. Notice I'm typing them all in lowercase as well. Here's Trip Smart. And then here's Coffee Shop. Okay, now if you want Coffee Shop to have an underscore, as in 2 words, you're welcome to do that as well. Within each one of these, I need you to create a folder called Assets. So within each one of these folders that you just created, oh, I did that one wrong. So within Coffee Shop, if you prefer to call the Assets folder Images, I don't mind. Just remember that that's what you called it. Okay, the book's going to call it Assets. Okay, so I just completed page 123 for Striped Umbrella. And so all they're doing right now in the chapter is just Striped Umbrella. But I'm going to have you create all 4 folders within CIS 230. Okay, and then an Assets folder within each one of those. Okay, so then you're going to come to Dreamweaver. And you're going to go up to Site. And you're going to say New Site. And then you're going to name this one. Let's just name it Striped Umbrella, sticking with the chapter. Now, here you can have spaces because it's just a site name. It's not a folder name. But if you want to use underscores to keep it consistent, that's fine too. Local site folder, I'm going to navigate to where I created those 4 folders. So in my case, I'm going to go to Desktop. I'm going to go to CIS 230, and I'm going to find my Striped Umbrella folder. And then I'm going to say Select. Okay, so that is setting up my local. Okay. Further step that I want you to do, and I know we don't get into this into a later chapter, but it's just simple to do it now, is to go to Advanced Settings and go to Local Info and set up the default Images folder. That is the Assets folder. Okay, you'll do this step for each site. Okay, so now I have a Striped Umbrella site over here. And if I go Site, New Site, I can create blooms, and if I want to say blooms and bulbs, or you can call it just blooms. Oh, now look at that, I closed it accidentally. So now I'm going to go to Manage Sites, and there's blooms and bulbs. I can double click on it, or I can click on that pencil icon, which will edit it. And then I'm going to navigate to my local folder, which is my blooms folder. And then go to Advanced Settings. Link that one to Assets. Okay, so now I have a blooms and bulbs. I also have a Striped Umbrella. These are all my websites that I use for different classes and so on. Yours will just be simple, just the 4. Okay, so then I'm going to go ahead and click Done here. I'm going to go back to Site, New Site, and I'm going to go TripSmart. Navigate to my local folder. Advanced Settings, Local, navigate to Assets, save. So now I have TripSmart. One more is Coffee Shop. Okay, so in my list, I have Coffee Shop, I have TripSmart. So now over my Files panel, I can just select which whenever I'm working on. So if I want to be working on blooms and bulbs, right now, of course, all I have in there is the Assets folder. But if I need to look at Striped Umbrella, I can jump to Striped Umbrella. I can go to TripSmart, and then I can go to Coffee Shop. Okay, so that's how you're going to set up your files locally. Okay, locally, again, on my desktop, that desktop is only known to me on my computer. Okay, then it comes into the server side of things. So the server side of things, I think I'm going to create a separate video for that once I have all the server information sent out to each and every student. Okay, so right now I just want you to do local. So right now you can just pause and not do page 25. Okay, so Files panel, we just talked about that. Once all the pages in your website are completed, you need to test the site to make sure all the links work, and we'll get into all that. Publishing means we're going to upload to the server so that I can go ahead and go to your domain and actually look at your work. We're going to use FTP to do that. And we just did pages 22 through 25. So now we're going to add a folder and we're going to add pages. So after you set up a website, you need to create folders to organize the files. Now we already created the assets folder, so we don't need to do that. So this one, it says then set as the default location to store the website images. We already did that step. Okay, so we're going to finish off with finishing pages 28 through 33. So this one just says add a folder. Well, we already did that. We already did the assets folder. Okay, we already did page 29. We set the default images folder. Okay, we're going to create the home page. So let's go ahead and we're going to work with just striped umbrella for now. And we're going to go File, Open, and this is where you're going to go to those data files. So wherever you store your data files. And this one says to open DW1_2. Okay, so here's DW1_2. And then we're going to do File, Save As, and we're going to save it as index. So this time I need to make sure that I'm in my striped umbrella folder. So I'm going to have to go from my desktop to CIS 230 into striped umbrella, and then I'm going to save this as index. Now don't worry about throwing HTML at the end. You certainly can type it, but you don't need to because it's going to save it as an automatic HTML file. Update links, I want you to always, always say no. No, no, no. Okay? Now, don't worry about that, hey, now it doesn't look the same. Okay, that's because we need to copy some files over yet. We need to copy boilerplate, SU styles, respond.min.js because they're not over here locally. So all of those links right now are essentially broken, and that's why the style is gone. Okay, so now it says on page 31 to go to the data files and copy those files. So now I'm going to navigate to my data files. So I'm using File Explorer on Windows system, and I'm going to go to my data files, chapter 1, and I'm going to copy boilerplate. I'm going to hold down my control key in Windows, and then I want respond, and I also want SU styles. So I'm going to copy those, and then I'm going to go to my local folder, which for me, guys, is on the desktop, striped umbrella, and I'm going to paste those files in there. Now when I come to Dreamweaver, I have somewhat of a page layout. I still don't have my image that was in my header, but I have the style back of the page because now I have those files over here. Okay, I need to repeat step 1 on page 31 and copy SU banner and SU logo. So now I'm going to come back here, get back to my data files, and in my assets folder, I'm going to find SU banner and SU logo. So I copy both of those, and I'm going to go back to my desktop and to my data files, not my data files, my site files, striped umbrella, assets, and paste that in there. Now when I come back to Dreamweaver, I should be getting those in. Sometimes it takes a little bit for them to come in, and it might be because the style sheet's not right, but it should come in correctly. Live view sometimes is a pain. There it is in design view. Now if I go back to live view, it's there. So you may have to toggle those things. Try not to get frustrated with Dreamweaver. Just kind of learn what you need to do to make it work. Now it says to go ahead and add pages on page 32. So select the plus symbol on the left of the assets folder to see that those 2 files were there, and that's what I did to make sure that they were copied. And then it says right click on striped umbrella folder and then do new. So you're going to right click on your root folder, and then you're going to do new file, and you're going to create about us. So about_us. And you're going to keep repeating that process till you have spa. If you accidentally create a new folder, just delete it. Okay. Cafe. Activities. cruises and fishing. Okay, so then you should have all of the files that are listed in figure 26. Okay, and if you want to refresh them, you can, and then that will put them in the same order. Okay, if I click this little arrow here, or actually if I click on, sometimes you can, yeah, this will just put them in descending order versus ascending order. Okay, guys, that's chapter 1. Okay, so introduction to Dreamweaver, as well as going through the site setup for local view, as well as bringing in a home page and bringing in the related files that were needed to make that page look like it needed to look. Okay, so what you're going to do for skills review is you're going to do the same steps. Okay, the same steps for Blooms, Trip Smart. So if I go to Blooms and bulbs, okay, you need to complete view a web page and use help, plan a website. You know what, actually, you know where you need to start on this one. You need to start on add a folder and pages, number 3. So 3 through 9 under add a folder and pages, because we've done all the other steps already. Then when you get into coffee shop, so what are we going to do for coffee shop? We're going to jump over here to the directions. So topic is coffee shop for all students. Okay, number 2 is to write a list of questions and answers. This is that page 19, that checklist that I went over with you. Create the storyboard / wireframe, okay, example here, and then submit both the questions and answers. So nothing in Dreamweaver you're going to be creating for your chapter 1. I just want to see your plan, and I want to see those answers to those questions. Okay, again, reminder, I will create another video with regards to the server information, and so you can practice that uploading to the server when that video comes. Okay, here's the coffee shop Dropbox where you're going to upload that wireframe / storyboard and also the questions and the answers. Okay, questions, hesitations, concerns, all of those stuff, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.